How are you?
We're good.
Oh, yeah.
I wish we could do that.
Yeah.
Welcome as we call our order. It's 5 o'clock, special meeting for a workshop, and 6 p.m. for a regular scheduled meeting. At this time, we will all stand. Mayor Pro Tem Henry Pace is going to lead us in the opening prayer, and I'll lead us in the pledges.
Let us pray. Father, I want to thank you for allowing us to come together today, and just ask that you would bless each one of us collectively and individually. bless us as we meet to discuss the city's concerns, and just ask that you would give us clarity and mind to do what is right for the citizens of the community. And just ask that you would bless everyone that's traveled from near and far. And just ask that you would give us each traveling grace to arrive home safely. In your name I pray forever. Amen.
Amen. Thanks, Brian. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor unto Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible. We do have a quorum present, and we're legal on all of our notices posted front and rear, the council chambers, city hall building here, and we all apply to the Open Meetings Act. Okay, so we're ready to go. We will immediately open the workshop pertaining to Kimberly Horn's scope of work. Declare a work schedule and contract for the comprehensive plan. Jay, I think you wanted to.
Yeah, so I'll just turn it over to Mr. Bowers. Mark Bowers is going to be is our project lead with Kimley. It's Kimley. It's Kimley, not Kimberly.
That's okay.
If you're looking for Kimberly, that's
I'm
Mark.
not Kimberly.
Well, I read it.
Yeah, you read it right. You read it. So anyway, Kimley Horn, and he's going to kind of give us. Some of us have met him, and then others for the first time. Most council have not. So he's got a quick presentation. We figure we do a workshop style presentation, and I'm sure he'll entertain plenty of questions and anything that we might want to talk to him about related to the comprehensive plan that we've been gearing up toward for a long time now. So this gives us plenty of opportunity to talk through this. Anything that you have as he gets through the presentation, however he wants to handle those, and we'll be able to do that. And then in the regular meeting, there's an agenda item which we will. I mean, when I say we, I mean y'all. 5 council members get to vote to to approve that contract and move forward with this scope of work. So
Thank you very much, Jay. And if you want to flip it to that next slide, and I tell you, we have no problem being called Kimberly. We've been hearing that for 50 years, so it's not unusual. Again, my name is Mark Bowers. I am a planner and landscape architect with Kimley Horn. Just real pleased to be here. I think the couple of folks that were on the selection committee know my dad was a graduate of Henderson High School back in the 1940s, and so it's been really great to be able to come back out and kind of read some of the notes that he was making back at that time and come back to where he spent a good part of his life. So really happy to be here. I guess on this slide, one of the key things I want to point out is for this type of project, we think it takes a lot of folks with different backgrounds. So as I mentioned, my background is planning and landscape architecture. I'll be the project manager, but we also have Daniel Acevedo as the deputy project manager. Daniel is actually degreed in architecture, but he's a certified planner as well. We have Jeff Whitaker, who focuses on mobility and transportation, on engineering at a planning level. He's a planner and a professional engineer. We have Julio Oliveira, who is also from Henderson, graduated from a different Henderson high school from my dad. Julio is with us this evening. And he is an engineer with a background more in water, wastewater. Madison Graham is a planner. She's going to be focused very much on public engagement. She gets a real charge out of meeting with the community and visiting with folks and setting up websites and that kind of thing. We also have Stokes and Associates on the team. Steve Wick is with us this evening. They're also looking at water and wastewater and aspects of the plan related to that and future growth areas based on that. And then finally, we have Mark McDaniel on the team. Mark is a former city manager of multiple communities around the state. Most recently, we crossed paths with him down in Kerrville, Texas, where he was our client. And when he retired from being a city manager, he said, I really like to start working on comp plans. I really enjoyed that process in Kerrville. And he's got a real good knack for implementation, setting up implementation strategies, and having sat on the city side of the table, understands some of the things and some of the struggles that you might have with getting projects implemented. So he's on the team to help us work through some of those things. As Jay mentioned, I'm happy to stop at any point and answer questions. I'll keep going, but if you have a question for me anywhere along the way, please let me know. So very briefly on Kimley Horn. Kimley Horn has about 5,400 employees. We like to think that the more important thing about us is that we are in local communities. So while we have those folks that we can reach out to and pull into if we need to, they have experiences in other areas that they could bring to the table. We like to say that there's probably not anything that's been experienced in a community that one of our partners in another city hasn't experienced at some point. We can reach out. We've got a really good network to be able to pull folks in to answer questions as they come up. But more importantly, we have about 25 community planners in Texas, focused in all areas of the state. So we're real excited to be able to bring that key staff to the table. So our experience on that next slide, Jay. Most recently, right now, we're about to wrap up a comprehensive plan over in Mount Pleasant, the Mount Pleasant 2040 comprehensive plan. We're also going to be hopefully adopting in May a Parks and Open Space master plan as a part of that process. But recently we completed the Decatur 2050 comprehensive plan and a 2050 comprehensive plan, as I mentioned, Kerrville, McKinney, Weatherford. And we're real excited that we've been recognized by our peers with the American Planning Association across the state. So the McKinney 2040 plan won the 2019 Comprehensive Plan Award from APA. The Weatherford Comprehensive Plan won the 2018 award, and the Austin Strategic Mobility Plan won the 2019 APA award for transportation planning. So it's always good to be recognized by your peers around the state. But I guess I really want to point out we've got a well-qualified team that has been successful working with communities in the past on these types of projects. So on that next slide, our overall approach is really simple. I'm going to start off by saying we believe very strongly that the plan should be the community's plan. If at the end of the day, somebody points to the plan and says, oh, that's Kimley Horn's plan, and I don't know what's in it, but the consultant came in and did the plan, then we failed miserably. At the end of the day, in a successful plan, what we found is folks in the community will be pointing and saying, oh, that was my idea. I shared that idea at a meeting. Oh, I participated in that piece. And at the end of the day, in order to implement the plan, we believe strongly that you got to have the community involved so that they are strongly in support of the plan. They see that their ideas are in it, and they want to see that future for the community. So that's really the key of what we're trying to do through this first phase, is reach out in the community, talk to folks, use our expertise as professionals to pull together ideas and tee things up and say, what do you think of this and that? But at the end of the day, it's all about hearing from folks in the community about what they want to see. So as we do that from a professional standpoint, we look at physical opportunities, and that may be, what are the things that are built on the ground today? Do you have some great streams? We know you got some nice parks and some lakes around the community. So how do we leverage those things to really make sure that you're accentuating those things in the plan and taking advantage of them in the future? But we also want to look at market potential. So we'll build upon some of the previous studies that have been done in the area, previous market research, and we'll supplement that with some recent data that we're going to be able to pull. And then we look at community aspirations. And we think that the vision really has to be at that nexus of those three things. If you have something that has physical opportunities and community support, but there's no market support, then you probably got something that's going to sit on a shelf because there just wasn't the market to make it happen. Or if we've seen things where a developer will come into a community and there's a physical opportunity and there's a market for it, and everybody shows up at City Hall and says, we don't want that here. And so, again, that's a situation where you don't have community support for something. So we found that unless you got all three of those things supported in your plan, it's going to be hard to get it to move forward. So that's really where we're focusing to make sure that that is what happens through the process. So let's talk a little bit on the next slide about the engagement process. So there's really three buckets. Again, as I said, the community is real important to this process. So we got three things we look at. We look at targeted input, interactive community events, and ongoing general involvement. And I want to talk about each of those in a little bit more detail. So on the next slide, the targeted input, there it is. So essentially, when you think about that, it's really targeting people that are representational within the community. So it may be people that are on a board or a commission, somebody in the faith-based community, and we're really looking for people that are representative of the opinions of larger groups of people in the community. So those are people that may be on the advisory committee, maybe neighborhood leaders, EDC, Chamber of Commerce, downtown and business associations, minority leadership, faith-based community, school district, all of those things. HEDCO is going to be important to the process. So we look at all of those things to make sure we have representatives to be able to share the opinions of those organizations and the ideas from those organizations. And then those meetings are held through advisory committee, through one-on-one stakeholder meetings, through small group meetings, and those types of things. The next slide is the interactive community events. And that's where we go out to the community, and it may be a planning meeting that is an open house or a workshop in the community that is just focused on the comprehensive plan. We see a lot of people in communities that are excited about coming out to meetings for a comprehensive plan and share their ideas, but we also see that there's some folks that aren't as inclined to want to come out if you say we want you to come out at 9 o'clock on a Saturday morning and share your thoughts about a comp plan. So you also have community events. So that's where we try to go to those events you've already got. You've got the Surrett Festival, any events in the community that we can just go and set up a booth. We have a captive audience from the folks that are already going there, and we just try to get them to stop by and share some ideas in the booth that we set up at that event. And then finally, we talk about things like focus groups and stakeholder interviews. Those are the types of things that we can do more one-on-one to get some ideas from folks as we move forward. And then that final bucket is that ongoing general involvement. It's interesting, especially since the COVID-19 pandemic, we have seen that type of involvement go through the roof. During COVID-19, it was the primary way we were dependent on getting ideas from the community. A lot of people weren't comfortable coming to face-to-face meetings. And what we found since then, now that people are comfortable coming back, a lot of them say, I still want to just weigh in on my computer or on my cell phone or something like that and share some ideas that way. So we want to have that platform available as well. So through the website, we'll talk more about it in a minute. We call it the Online Project Hub. Essentially, we have the ability to put up maps and do interactive mapping, have people drop a little dot on the map and share ideas and comments about improvements that need to be made or ideas for what could happen to those areas in the future. We tee up online surveys through that online hub to get feedback from the community about the vision for the future that they'd like to see here in Henderson. Social media is another thing that we tee up through the online hub. And then email communications and all the way down to Teams and Zoom meetings. So there are opportunities, if you like, for us to handle some of these meetings through Zoom. A lot of times we'll do stakeholder interviews utilizing Zoom or Teams now rather than face-to-face meetings. That's a real cost-effective way to be able to have those types of meetings now. So it's really, since the pandemic, it's become a hybrid of face-to-face and online meetings. And I think it's really made our projects a little bit better now that we're using all of those tools. So on the next slide, just to share a couple of things, just some examples we've got of the Digital Project Hub, and I'll share an image on a computer screen in a minute. Online surveys, we try to set them up so you can either do it on your computer, but also set them up so that they're available on cell phone. We use QR codes a lot so that people can be in the community. And if you have a little sign that says, take our survey for Henderson 2050 or whatever plan horizon we determine is the right one for Henderson, and people can just take a photo of the QR code on their phone and it takes them straight to the survey so that they can share input. Digital community forums, the interactive map I touched on, where people can actually go in and start to place some markers on a map. On the next slide, oftentimes if you've gone to public meetings on a planning type of project, there may be multiple stations. One is, let's talk about the types of housing you want to see. Let's talk about the mobility alternatives you want to see in the community. Where are the problem intersections? We can do those same things online. So we can set up a virtual room to where people can go online to the website and go and interact in the same types of activities that they would in a face-to-face meeting. So we're not suggesting you do one or the other. What we do now is we'll have the face-to-face meeting, but we'll have the online version of the meeting available that a man who's working or a woman who's working third shift and can't get to a meeting or has kids that they have soccer practice and can't make a meeting, they have the opportunity still to get engaged. I think I've hit all of those. So next slide is just if you click, there it goes. So this will just walk through an example of, this is actually the website over in Mount Pleasant. So that online hub is the source for a lot of information. It talks about the schedule, all of the meetings that are upcoming. It will be the place where you can launch into a survey. Here you can see it's going to look at that project map. And this is just an example of some of the things that people started dropping in Mount Pleasant, some of the comments that they added. It's showing you how simple it is to go through that process and make that happen. And then at the end of all of this, after each meeting, each event, this also becomes the location for all materials related to the project. We think it's real important to be transparent so that every comment that's received, every event that takes place, we share all of that feedback on the website so that people can go back and look at it. And it's really then an additive process rather than people having to get up to speed at every step along the way. So next slide, we'll start to dig a little bit into the scope of services. And what we've done is structured things in a way that it's really got a starting point to where between now and about October 1st, the middle of September, we will be working to get to a point that we typically call the point where we have the strategic direction for the comprehensive plan. And I'll get into a little bit more detail on that in just a moment. But it starts off with phase one. We call it state of the city internally. We probably won't do that externally because you may very well have a state of the city that you go through each year. Many communities do. So we can call it just information gathering, but it's really about taking a look at existing conditions here in Henderson, bringing together demographic information, psychographic information, market information to be able to start to move forward. So task one is really just the initiation kickoff meeting and then progress meetings that we would be having with staff just to make sure that we're staying on track from a management standpoint, hitting deadlines and all of those types of things, making sure that we're meeting expectations of staff. Task two, data collection and mapping, where we would be gathering a lot of that data, looking at existing land use, existing natural systems like floodplains, et cetera, looking at existing city facilities. We would be doing base mapping. So a lot of these things that I just mentioned will have maps that are developed with your existing zoning, existing land use, existing floodplain areas, existing roadways, and each of those themes then build upon each other and become part of that database in a GIS platform. Then we look at the existing conditions. We analyze and we do mapping of all of those conditions. Next page on task three, that's where we get into the demographic and market analysis. we talk about socioeconomic and psychographic information. It used to be years ago, we would pull census data and look at demographic information, and it was pretty straightforward with male, female, race, ethnicity, et cetera, et cetera. What we found is psychographics is a tool that a lot of retailers will utilize as they're looking at a community to say, does that community fit the profile of a community that we would do well in? And so it starts to look at people's spending habits. It looks at the types of houses they like to live in, the types of housing, the types of cars they like to drive, the type of music they listen to on the radio. And it really starts to drill down so that you get a real interesting idea of the folks that are in the community. In this case, we happen to have 3 segments that we had run for Henderson prior to our interview. So you can see those 3 here, but there will be a wealth of information as we get into the project that we'll be sharing with you in the community. And it's always fun for folks in the community to look at those and say, I do fit into some of those categories there. So we'll be looking at those types of things, building upon any market data that you have with additional market analysis. And then task 4 is really the crux of this first phase of services where we get into the community engagement. So it'll be developing some specifics on the plan of how we'll be reaching out to the community, how we get the word out, how we'll engage the community going forward. It'll look at the web-based engagement, community open house, and the open house results that would be part of that first phase of work that we would be looking at. And then on the next slide, task 5, we get into the community snapshot and strategic direction. Typically in the process, the phase 1 of the process culminates. It's looking at all of these types of background materials, trying to get an understanding from talking to people in the community, looking at data, doing research on market, et cetera, to really encapsulate what are the key issues, what are the key things that we're trying to achieve. And through that process, phase 1 typically culminates in what we'll call the strategic direction for the community. And that is really the launching point where we will develop a vision statement, working with the community and the Comprehensive Plan Advisory Committee to come up with a vision statement for plan horizon. Again, that could be 2050, depending on where you and the committee land on that planning horizon. We look at guiding principles. So what are those principles that are kind of core to who you are as a community that we need to keep in mind as we're developing that vision? And then it ends up with a land use direction. And then phase 2 would then launch into more detailed analysis of land use, downtown, mobility, and create some real specific direction for each of those things. So really, it's working out well about September timeframe to call a little pause and say, okay, let's get this strategic direction in place, make sure everybody's on board, celebrate that. And then the thought was that assuming everything's going well, that we could launch into the phase 2 of the project where we would get in, develop the detail and detailed implementation strategy in the next phase. So next slide. This is just an example of a few communities that we've prepared vision statements, guiding principles, and you can see each one is structured in a different way because each community has a different value system, a different way that they want the information portrayed. So the one on the far left, you can see it's just got some key bullets that people can look at easily and get a feel for the vision, versus the second one from McKinney, Texas, gets into a longer statement. So we'll be working with, again, the advisory committee as we move forward to say what is the best way to structure a vision statement for Henderson for the future. You can see the guiding principles can be broken out in different ways. Those are just a few examples. But the key is we want to do something that fits what Henderson needs, fits who you are, and really is unique to this community as we move that forward. So next slide. This is just an example of the overall land use plan, the preferred scenario that would be developed kind of at the culmination of phase one. And it would be from this plan that we start to dig into more detail on land use, on mobility, on the loop. There'll be much more focus in phase two on the loop and some of the ideas on what can happen in that area, economic development, et cetera. So next slide, the overall schedule for phase one that we're looking at. We had suggested kicking off, assuming council is agreeable tonight to the arrangements in the contract, kicking off that first week of April, immediately going in through April with data collection, base mapping, existing conditions. Do that through April and May. Demographic and market analysis would also be taking place through the end of April and first part of May. And then really try to get that website up and going as quickly as possible towards the end of April, 1st of May, so that we can start getting the word out in the community of what's going on with the comprehensive plan, and starting to get some feedback. You see under task 5, there would be a state of the city staff work session that takes place in May, along with key individual interviews. That's folks like elected officials, board members, faith-based community. We'll work with staff to identify what are some of those groups that are important to reach out to in Henderson. That would be taking place in May. And then a joint comprehensive plan committee, planning and zoning commission, and city council workshop would occur around the middle of May as well, to be able to say, okay, through the state of the city process, here's what we've heard. This is the initial interpretation. Get your feedback and your additional input on that. We always like to do it with P&Z Council and CPAC, the Comprehensive Plan Advisory Committee, together, so that you can hear each other's viewpoint. And at the end of the day, you as the body that will be adopting a comprehensive plan at the end of the process can share your thoughts back with CPAC about direction of the plan. We would then continue working. We go in June for a community open house. That's typically about a half-day session where people come out. They can come and go. A lot of stations are set up in a room. Oftentimes we'll have it in a school lunchroom or an auditorium or in a gymnasium. But we need a fairly large room so that people can come and go, and with multiple stations to where they can share feedback with us on what they want to see in the future of the community and where their north arrow is. And then finally, coming back middle of August to the Comprehensive Plan Advisory Committee and in a joint workshop with council to say, okay, these are the results of this phase one process, and make any tweaks following that. But at that point, it would be set up very well after September to roll into a phase two process if you'd like to do that. So just a couple more slides to outline what that might look like. So on phase two, we said it might be in fiscal year 2022-23. It would be developing the detail on the comprehensive plan elements. So it would be the detail on the future land use, mobility, economic or fiscal strategy. One of the things we heard from the selection committee and that we believe very strongly in is that we need to be creating fiscal balance in a community. We don't want to come up with a bunch of ideas that are not achievable because just from a fiscal standpoint, it's not possible. We also like to look at projects that can build upon each other. So, for instance, if you invested in a certain type of improvement in the community, that may be something that generates income and tax base for the city in the future. And then that tax base that you're able to achieve can then be reinvested in the next key focus area, get return on that. So that it's really looking more at a portfolio of assets rather than looking at multiple costs around the city. And we think it's important to look at it that way. The 571 development plan, so it would be looking at alternatives for how 571 might develop. We can do a little bit of economic analysis on each alternative so that the decisions that you make about the future of that corridor, you'll have all the information related to the fiscal impacts of anything that would happen out there, as well as the fiscal benefits of that. Parks, trails, and open space strategy, which will be more policy direction, infrastructure strategy, and facility strategy. And then finally, task 8 and 9. Task 8 would be another community open house where we would go out with the drafts of the plan elements and get additional feedback from the community. We would also be getting online input. We would have another joint workshop with CPAC, P&Z, and City Council, and then come up with any final modifications to the plan. We would develop an implementation strategy. The implementation strategy typically has very specific things that the city and its partners should be doing to implement the plan. I say the city's partners because we don't think that it is a situation where a comprehensive plan should only fall on the shoulders of the city. While it's the city's responsibility typically to organize it, there is a role for the county, for the school district, for HEDCO, for numerous partners, TxDOT, to be able to assist in that process. And we try to line out what those partnerships might be and how to form some of those partnerships, as well as order of magnitude costs associated in phasing. What are the top priorities and what are the lower priorities through the process? And then finally, task 10, plan adoption. If you chose at the end of phase 1 to roll into phase 2 with your new fiscal year, starting at some point in October, we think about this time next year, the entire comprehensive plan would be ready for adoption. So that's the overall schedule we would be looking at. I said a lot, and a lot of slides there, but I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
I do have one. The comprehensive plan advisory committee would consist of?
So typically it is representative of folks in the community.
Gotcha.
Sometimes, so when councils ask us who should, or staff ask us, either one, who should be on the committee, we'll typically say it may have a member or two from council to just be a part of it. It may or may not have a P&Z member or two. If you were going that route to where you had elected and appointed officials on it, probably HEDCO should have a representative, maybe the school district. And then key business leaders in the community, if there are key business owners or business leadership groups that you may have. In some communities, there were folks from the faith-based community that would be a part of it as well. But again, we can float a lot of ideas for folks that might, the types of people that might be on it. But keep in mind that at the end of the day, is we're looking for individuals. So we're not looking for a whole bunch of people with all the same idea. We're looking for folks that are representative of your broader community.
So it would be pretty well diversified as far as overall community members.
That would be the recommendation.
Whether it be city people, county people, and like you say, faith-based people.
Mm-hmm.
Just get a good overview.
Yeah.
But maybe not too many. Maybe
Yeah.
not a large giant.
Typically, so in Kerrville, when we came into Kerrville, I know this is being recorded, but it was, the political environment was very divided. And so it was overly representative to the point that we had about 70 people on an advisory committee. And when we had advisory committee meetings, it was in a big conference hall. We had to set up tables. We had to utilize keypad polling to get thoughts from people and people going, it was almost like a community meeting every time we had one. Typically anywhere from 10 to 18 people, probably not more than 18. But again, depending on the need in this community, I would say you you would want to be representative. And if that means it's a little larger to make sure you're representative, then I would suggest you go that route. If you think you can do it with 12, 14 people, then that's great.
Good. Pretty well answered that question. That's good. I know you've got questions.
Do we ultimately determine the number, what you're saying, the number?
Yeah, so we typically recommend about 12 to 18. In some communities, they choose not to have city council and P&Z representation on the CPAC committee, because they look at it and say, well, you're going to be coming back and pulling us into meetings anyway, so let's see what CPAC does on their own, and we'll work with them that way. In other communities, they say, no, we really want to have at least one council member and one P&Z
I would
member.
agree.
Yeah.
Any staff members?
Typically,
Maybe.
typically staff is not on the committee.
Gotcha.
We typically work with staff on a separate path. They're helping us keep the wheels on the bus,
Gotcha.
making sure that we're not doing anything we shouldn't be, bringing up anything we shouldn't bring up in the community or something like that. I mean, again, if you feel it's important that staff be represented on
I
that.
don't, I just.
Yeah.
We're asking a question.
Yeah, in some communities, so a lot of communities in these public meetings will do keypad polling where you can look at something and we're asking opinions on things and you push a little button on, it looks like a little TV remote control and people weigh in. In some communities, staff says, no, I don't want to participate. I want to see what everybody else is. We always look and say, well, you live in the community and you work in the community, so you ought to have a say too. But again, each community is different. And we want to respect the way you prefer to do things.
But you have data on the communities that you already worked with and kind of know what that size was and
Absolutely.
who were participating and what groups were participating. So
Absolutely.
that would lead us in the right direction as to
Exactly.
maybe how to start out.
Yeah, that's what I was trying to do.
I mean,
The selection process, for
Exactly.
that thing is going to be determined by us and then
Yeah.
you're.
And then we will work with them.
Okay.
Yeah, and some
I would think you would know exactly where to start. Rely on us to.
exactly.
we've got to lean on you and your group to advise us as to how far to go and how far not to go.
Yeah.
Whatever. So
Exactly.
we want to do it the right way. And you've already seen people do it the wrong way already. You can tell us not to do it that way.
We've got some good lessons learned.
That's
I'll
what
put it that
I
way.
would assume. I would assume that. Okay. I know y'all have some questions. Melissa, you know you go.
Not to put you on the spot.
I know.
No, wouldn't do it.
I think it was a very good presentation, and I don't have any questions.
Thank you.
Very good. We,
So we start with phase one, and like you said, the 22, 23, when it comes up, we have to vote to move into phase two. Does it come up each individual phase?
It's really a budgeting
I-
piece.
yeah, that's what I was gonna
It's
say.
really a budgeting piece, so, hey Karen. So, you know, we've budgeted for this over the last couple of years, and it's just, we kind of keep kicking it because, you know, COVID got us and pushed us down the road there. But we've carried that on, that $100,000 is a placeholder basically in the budget is what we've budgeted. And so that's what we have this current budget year we're sitting in is $100,000. And so phase one, we worked to try to put something together that includes from a cost standpoint, a good standard spot that gets us, and he's done a real good job of getting almost on the money. I think,
We were able to,
it's
we
real
gave-
close.
we gave you a menu with
Yes.
various items. And then from that menu, he said, well, here's what our budget is after we
That's how
came.
some of this. these
So we
phases-
move things around
Yeah.
to be able to fit the,
Yeah, we were able to have a meeting and kind of run through the whole gamut of what that looked like, and then we kind of pieced things back into a budget that became a phase one. And then and so the timeline of this, as he talked about, will finish somewhere there in September, October, right about the same time that our new budget will go into play. So in our budget process,
Right.
we already have an idea roughly of what phase 2 is gonna cost. And so in the budget process, we will kind of make that decision in that process of, yeah, we're gonna commit to go to phase 2 or not by what by the budget and what that looks like. And then if we say, we want to include that in the budget, then we'll know, we'll slide right into phase 2, and then by this time next year, like you said, around about a 12-month period, we'll be completely done, ready for full adoption. So, I mean, phase 1, the end of phase 1, you've got some very good information but phase 2, I do think, is super, super important moving forward as we get into this. We'll see that, and there'll be a lot of work that goes into phase 1, so we're gonna want to finish that off in phase 2. But that's why I set up this phase 1 and phase 2 as a budgeting.
And we wanted to make sure there was a solid deliverable at the end of phase 1, so that if there was a temporary pause or whatever, there was something that the city had that you can continue to build on in the future. And you weren't just, okay, we did this, but we don't have anything until we do phase 2.
Right. So at the end of phase 1, we can measure our accomplishments, see how far we've gone or how far we need to go.
That's right.
Okay. That makes sense.
I think my ears have perked up on the potential of money-making items that could fund.
That's true.
fund things.
No, that's true. That's true.
That's
She's
exciting.
all about the money.
I'm all about the money.
That's
Finance director.
That's good that we could, do this in phases. Know that we're going in the right direction.
What other questions y'all have? Workshop.
Yeah.
I was going to ask, when we get to the phase where the community's involved, asking for their input, will there be a time I'm sure some of them will have to be educated. We didn't know we had this, so we didn't know we did that. Will that be a part that we, as a city, clue them in on? Or how is that information?
So, as we ramp up with the website, one of the first things that we have on there is, what is a comprehensive plan? Why do cities do comprehensive plans? What does it achieve for you? So there's a lot of educational background information. And then we put some specific information that's specific to Henderson, what you've been doing, what your last comprehensive plan was when it was adopted. One of the questions is, why is the city updating the comprehensive plan? And typically it's because of the age of the last one and, how the community's changed since that time. So there's a lot of that, but then at each specific meeting, we try to get everybody on a level playing field. So typically we'll have some sort of an overview presentation to bring folks up to speed as to what the conditions are, what is it you need to know to be able to intelligently and thoughtfully participate in this effort that day, and then do that before we tee up the information gathering and the perspectives that we're gaining. So a lot of education. So we get educated from the community about their desires, but from our professional standpoint, we know that they don't know all the planning lingo and everything. So we've always got to watch that.
I have a question or a comment. How would is there any thought process on when we do get the website up, and how are we gonna get this to the people that don't speak English, that only, the language?
Yes.
I know you have Julio and that's great, but.
Well, and actually my mother was Shirley Canales. She was, so I speak, there are a lot of Spanish speakers with our team. So at the same time, I didn't go into this because of time, but the website, we utilize a software to where on any page you can click on Google Translate and it'll translate the entire page into Spanish or multiple languages for you. So, and then we, at the face-to-face meetings, we will have people that are able to speak Spanish at the stations.
Thank you.
Anything from the back row bandits?
Oh,
That's staff back there, Mark.
come on, that's, yeah, come on, guys.
They're looking forward and they're eager to.
Take on something
Yeah, that's
more.
why they're here, that we're here early.
Yeah.
Overachievers. Speaking of overachiever,
There's Leon. Speak on in and get you a parking place.
council, anything else?
You're lucky tonight.
I guess so.
Boy, I tell
He's
you.
asleep.
Michael's tired. Michael's tired. He's done.
I had to kick him out of my office. He was about to take a nap in there earlier.
That's just normal.
Yeah.
Same as that.
I have had 3 hours and 2 days. I'm doing about as well as can be.
If nothing else, so Mark, I guess we'll let you off the hook for now, and then there will be an agenda item, in the regular, agenda there on item number 13. So,
Thank you very much.
tackle it then. Thank you.
Thank you.
We have just a few more minutes, and there's another item on the workshop. If there's any discussion or question that's come up related to what we'll talk about with radios, both chiefs are here. We had some conversations, I know individually with council members on some of this. Of course, Councilmember Cersei probably knows, has forgotten more about it than what I know, and so he's available to answer questions, but that'll be on the agenda as we come up to, but there's a few more minutes in our work session here if we wanted to have any discussion or any questions specific to those radios or the agreement that we'll be talking about with UT Health for the radios to communicate. Anything at all that y'all have?
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so I understand that we'll have to purchase new radios.
Correct.
Simply because of the,
It's a different band.
yes,
It's a
exactly.
different frequency band
We'll have to have everything the same, correct?
on the same band.
On the same band, on the same band. But some of them will be dual band or,
The fire, I believe.
Fire.
Is that what we're talking about, chiefs?
is that right?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, so,
And the reason for that is because the county fire district, unless they can get funded to switch over as well, they're gonna stay with what they have.
okay, gotcha,
And considering that we go and help almost every fire department in the county,
gotcha.
they need that to be able to stay.
But have to talk to them, right, exactly. So the infrastructure that'll be in place, so can utilize either one, either bank. Okay, I got you. Okay. And that's quite a few radios, right?
Yeah, because all your law enforcement and all your firefighters have
Everything. So does that have anything to do with the highway patrol?
The highway patrol can utilize, they do utilize the new system.
With what they've got, they don't
Yeah,
have to
that's-
change anything?
No, they have both. They're
They have
provided
both,
because
okay.
Tyler runs off of this new system,
Okay,
This-
I got you.
system we're looking at.
So this will all be modern, the whole thing will be modern in the way it ought to be. I'm sure we're way behind, far behind. Okay. Anything else we need to know about the radio?
Two sessions, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I just, well, we got a few kind of answers right now.
This is training workshop.
Any questions? Just take advantage of time.
Mike, what about the availability of radio, of the hardware?
Right now, we should be able to have. Some things will have to be done, we'll have to do some coordination with UT Health and Harris County, which is the big owner in the system. But 2 weeks ago, I went to where they operate from, Houston. And it's,
Found out how it works.
I was thoroughly educated.
Gotcha. So there's no big lag or downtime waiting on hardware.
They have a staff of about 10 to 20 that work 24/7 in shifts to maintain the integrity of the whole system. On top of what UT has on, that's their little quadrant.
We can officially go, we can go to recess, and then we'll come back in at 6 o'clock.
Yeah, we will now recess until 6 p.m. and then we'll start the regular council meeting. Okay, we'll reconvene now, back in, regular session, regular council meeting. We have a couple of presentations here, one of which we have a lady that was unable to show, and we were gonna do a proclamation for Sexual Assault Awareness Month. But we will forego that, and we'll do that at a later date with this lady in person. We do have another proclamation for Don't Mess with Texas Trash Off event. And so at this time, Leon, if you'll approach the podium here, give the council here and the folks in here a little bit of information about the trash off event, why we're doing this. And so,
Okay. The Don't Mess with Texas Trash Off event is the largest event for Keep Texas Beautiful. They're part of an event across the U.S. in conjunction with Keep America Beautiful. As far as our particular affiliate, Keep Henderson Beautiful, it's part of the qualification that we need for our Governor's Community Achievement Award, GCAA. That's how we win funds from TxDOT to allow beautification along the roadways. Okay. I'm going to read as instructed here. Proclamation, Don't Mess with Texas Trash Off event, City of Henderson Trash Off Day. Whereas the City Council of Henderson, Texas met in regular session on the 22nd day of March 2022, and whereas the council takes great pride in the City of Henderson and encourages all residents of the City of Henderson to be responsible citizens in litter prevention and waste reduction. And whereas the presence of litter in a community presents health hazards to its citizens, which would more than likely cause more littering in the area, which leads to the devaluing of the property and surrounding properties. And by contrast, a clean community discourages littering and improves overall community quality of life, along with increased property valuation. And whereas community cleanup and beautification projects are welcomed by the council, with reason being when the city has to send a work crew to help properly clean, is very costly to the taxpayer, which means taxable revenue is being spent in cleaning someone's trash. And whereas the council encourages citizens of the City of Henderson to take pride in our community, in this great state, and be a participant in the City of Henderson Trash Off Day by working with your community leaders and volunteers and bringing litter or debris to each designated collection site throughout the county and cities to make this a successful day of cleanup that will make our city a better place to live. Signed on this 22nd day of March. The actual official day is April 2nd, the first Saturday. This is in conjunction with Rusk County. In the past, we've had the school districts participate, civic organizations, we've had churches. So if you guys are affiliated with any of those, I encourage you guys to get your teams together. I'll have bags and safety vests available. Just let me know. I think everybody's got my number. So I can get the bags and vests too. Otherwise, I'll be that Saturday morning about 8 o'clock parked in front of the Civic Center with bags and vests for anybody who didn't get it.
okay, question.
Okay.
So the county on the same day will open their dump sites at the various precincts.
Yeah, all transfer sites will be open
All
free
one day.
to the public.
Okay, I got you. Free to the public.
Right.
Okay.
Here, the city will collect tires. The county won't collect tires.
Okay.
The
The
city,
city takes tires.
Yeah.
Okay.
and the city collects, brush and debris. The county doesn't.
They don't do that.
No.
Okay. What about batteries? They don't do batteries.
No.
Batteries, vehicle batteries.
No. Paint, any hazardous materials cannot go into
Gotcha.
the site.
Gotcha.
But paint, if you dry the cans out, you can
It's fine.
burn that.
Well, we appreciate that, Leon.
Thank you. Thank you. I
Thank you.
appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next item on the agenda is the consent. Any item on this agenda can be moved down to the regular session if necessary by a council member, the mayor, or city staff. Otherwise, you've already looked this over, I'm sure, in your packet. And do I hear a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I make a motion that we approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded. All in favor, please raise your right hand. Consent agenda stands approved at this time. We'll now move to council business, the regular session. Item number 4 is consideration and possible action upon ratification of a one-time salary adjustment payment to all city employees, excluding directors, elected and appointed officials, due to the effects of COVID and inflation. Mr. Abercrombie, you've got a little explanation here.
I do, and I had a memo, I have a memo, and that basically explains what I, you know, the conversations that I had with council, talking about this item, and, if I can, I'm just gonna try to read, so I don't wanna leave anything out. I don't wanna just, turn around and give you something that you've probably already read and just read it to you. I don't really do that, but I'm gonna try to do this that way so I don't leave anything out when it comes to why we're doing what we're doing. So anyway, y'all probably read it, bear with me, and I'm gonna try to read through it. I'm gonna try to do it without, probably not gonna be able to without getting emotional about it, because it's important, to our people. Council, we're living in times and our community has not been, in tough times, trying times, our community's not been sheltered from it. Over the last 2 years, we've seen devastation of COVID-19 pandemic and what's brought to our city and our county. We've seen loved ones, family members, close friends pass away due to this terrible virus. Our team of employees in the city were not excluded. They also had to endure the policies that we had to put in place to prevent the spread of the virus to coworkers and their families. These policies included face coverings, mandatory quarantines, travel restrictions, training cancellations, movements of office locations or sleeping quarters, such as the fire department, work remotely requirements, just to name a few. Our team of 160 employees had to schedule around school closures and had to teach their children from home, some with spotty internet connections at best, or daycare closures with no one to stay or watch their children just so they could actually come to work. They had to find ways, as we all did, to buy groceries and other necessities while stores were forced closed for fear of spreading this unknown virus. All of this is done on a below average salary for the majority of our people, and I see this as extraordinary. On February 7th, 2021, we had the winter storm Uri, or the snowpocalypse, as we like to call it. Our team did extraordinary things and acts of service that go way beyond their job descriptions to serve the people, the businesses of Henderson, Texas. I will forever be grateful as a citizen for the work of our city employees during this never before seen event in Texas. While cities and water districts all around the state were having major problems with water pressure, many of them losing water altogether, our crews kept the water and wastewater going with very minimal concerns and disruptions for our water customers. They worked through the night for multiple nights, turning off meters of approximately 400 individual customers and businesses with concerns of leaks and from burst pipes. This was done while having to sleep in vehicles, sometimes in between calls. Again, extraordinary. Now we're living in times where the uncertainty is all around us due to a global crisis of war in the Ukraine and inflation. Gas prices are soaring at record numbers. The price of groceries and everyday supplies for families continues to skyrocket, and this is if you can even find them. Our talented team members continue to come to work and do business, the business of serving the city and its people in whatever their capacity is. They do this without complaining. They have a sense of duty and pride. They do this all while being near the bottom of many pay scales. Extraordinary. I've had several conversations with some of you, and you're concerned about the salaries of our city employees. This is the number one priority that we're going to address in this upcoming budget. Although we have our work cut out for us, I'm confident we'll make the appropriate decisions to address the salary concerns we have for our staff, and those adjustments can happen starting in October. However, due to all the previously mentioned conditions, our people are in need right now. My recommendation was to do a one-time salary adjustment paid to all city employees, and also to get it to them immediately. Council, you never wavered and expressed immediate support for this and for our staff. Again, that's extraordinary. I'm honored to work and live in Texas, and I'm honored to work with the mayor and council, and most of all, I'm honored to work with the 160 coworkers that I call family. Here at the City of Henderson, continuing the extraordinary efforts and decisions over the last 2 years, I would ask council to ratify this action by me, the city manager, which included a one-time salary adjustment to our extraordinary and deserving team members. This amount of the one-time salary adjustment will be full-time employees, a gross of $2,165.67, meaning a net pay of $2,000 after taxes in their pocket. All full-time employees. Part-time employees will receive a net of $500 in their pocket net after taxes. We're excluding directors, elected and appointed officials because we're not the ones necessarily that are in the need. I think that's important. These payments will come directly out of our American Rescue Plan fund balance, as we discussed, and not from any budgeted funds. So, council, I would ask for your approval and ratification of my actions that was done in the last week or two. Thank you so much.
Do I hear a motion? Motion has been made and seconded. All in favor, please raise your right hand. Good. Item number 4 stands graciously approved.
Thank you, Council.
We'll move now to item number 5 on the agenda. That's consideration and possible action upon HEDCO's annual 2020-2021 audit. Mr. Clary, would you like to tell us about it?
Hello, Mayor and Council, and I want to just take just a little bit of time today to note that you have a brief part of our audit in your packets, but this doesn't happen very often, but our budget was a clean budget. I mean, our audit was a clean audit this year, which means there's no findings, no nothing, and that's attributable to one person on our staff, and that's Karen Smith. And so I want to recognize her tonight. She's not here, but I just want to recognize her publicly. That if it was up to me to take care of the financials and try to keep them straight, we'd be in a big mess. And but anyway, she's been with us for over 14 years, and she does a really good job taking care of our money. And so anyway, totally clean audit. We're good. Very happy about it, and look forward to y'all approving that.
Any questions for Mr. Clary? Okay, good. Do I hear a motion?
Move we approve the audit.
So,
Motion has been made and seconded. All in favor, please raise your right hand. All opposed, like sign. Item number 5 stands approved. We'll now move to item number 6 on the agenda. That's consideration and possible action upon the City of Henderson's annual audit for the 2020-2021 budget presented by Representative Gallup Morgan and Petty, PC.
Yes, I'll just His gonna be a little bit longer than John.
I can make it shorter.
Okay.
I'll be honest with you, I've done it before. All right. Thank y'all. Thank you, Mayor, Council, for letting me be here tonight. There are some new faces to me, so I just want to introduce myself. Kevin Cashin. I'm a partner with the firm of Gallimore and Petty and Tyler. We've been doing your audit now for several years, and we appreciate the relationship we have with the city. I'm a hometown boy, so it's nice to come back here and get to see people again and get to work with great people. I appreciate Jay so much and what y'all are doing again here at the city for your employees. I appreciate Karen and her staff and all their hard work helping us put this together. Just to give you a little update before I get into things tonight, we spent a couple of hours, probably Jay and I and Karen went through this in great detail. I'm not going to spend all that detail tonight with you, but I do want to hit on a few things I think are important to you as a council. First and foremost, if you look at the pages 1 through 3, that's our opinion on the financial statements for the city. We're looking at 9/30/21 year end. And at the top of page 2, there's an opinion, which is basically why you hire us. It's to render an opinion on the financial statements of the city. This is an unmodified opinion. It is the cleanest opinion we can render for the city of Henderson. It's the same opinion we've rendered every year since we've been involved with you. I want to point to a couple of things in your MD&A document. I'll direct you to some page numbers tonight as we kind of go through this. Again, I do want to be brief. I know you got a lot to cover. On page 6, there's a table there which presents your net position in a condensed format. It basically, the MD&A is an important document, I think, for you as a council because it's really the one place you're going to be able to see comparative information with your previous year. If you get into the body of the report, it primarily focuses on 21, but again, this gives you kind of an idea of some changes between the 2 years. So I want to focus on primarily this and one other table. If you look at page 6, there's 2 things here, the governmental activities and your business type activities. Business type activities is pretty simple. That's your water sewer operation. Your governmental activities primarily deal with your general fund, which is your main operating fund, some other special revenue funds. And then one of the funds that's kind of dwindled down is a street renovation fund that you had some bond money you acquired a couple of years back, and that's kind of dwindled down as you spent those bond dollars. Under governmental activities, just again kind of compare, you'll see there your current and other assets increased approximately $800,000. That's kind of a swing in that your general fund cash investments went up about $2.8 million, which is great to see. Anytime your general fund can continue to increase the cash, that's wonderful to see. And then that street renovation fund dropped about $2 million again, because you put money into your street projects, and we'll see that in a little more detail here in a minute. On the business type side, your current and other assets dropped about $1.6 million, which is mostly cash investments as you're pouring more money into your system. And we're looking to see that turn around in the next fiscal year. Kind of flipping it, looking at capital assets, I'm going to address your attention to pages 42 and 43 in the footnotes. So kind of bear with me on that. Primarily just to kind of show you some of the significant changes that happened. You had 2 pieces of property donated to you in the past fiscal year. One right across the street, a 1/3 interest in the building there, which you, and we'll look at a subsequent event, that you've now acquired the other 2/3 interest in. You also were donated the ball fields, the baseball complex. So that's reflective in these changes in the table on page 42. So basically, about the 1/3 interest was valued at about $681,000. The value placed on the sports complex was $563,000. So that's reflected in here. And then we're going to see the other side of that here in just a minute. You also, if you look there, you'll see a lot of construction in progress activity. And then basically, a lot of those projects were closed out in fiscal year 21 and were included in the $6.2 million worth of infrastructure. Again, that's those street projects that you completed in the past year. If you flip over to the next page, you can see the changes in your capital assets on the business type side. The bulk of that is improvements on your water and sewer system of $1.7 million. And a big chunk of that relates to in your CIP that you have, primarily relates to current costs you have involved with the East Side Sewer Main Project, the phase 2 and 3 of that, which is ongoing and should be completed in the current year. Let's go back to page 7 in the MD&A. This kind of shows your net income or your changes in net position for the year. Overall, you'll see that I like to start at the bottom and work my way up. The overall change in net position on the governmental activity side, you'll see the previous year we had a decrease of $313,000. This year we had an increase of $2.3 million. So a big change there. A big part of that again goes back to what we mentioned before with the properties that were donated to you. You show donated revenue for those items, and that is what's part of the capital grants and donations. Okay, that's about what the total is, about $1.24 million between those two things. So again, that was part of your increase in your total revenues for the year. Again, we saw an increase in a lot of things, property taxes, which we expect to see because of the increase in valuations. Sales tax dollars are starting to come back now that we're kind of recovering to some degree from COVID-19. And again, what I mentioned before about the capital grants. Your expenses were down $600,000, so you did a great job in controlling your costs for the year there. And then so that increases our net position for the year to $2.3 million. Over on the water and sewer side, pretty much flat between the 2 years. We still had a decrease in our net position this year of $363,000 compared to $153,000 the previous year. A lot of that was, I know we do have a rate increase that went into effect during that fiscal year. But you take that into account with some of the wetter months we had during the summer of 21. So hopefully, like to tell a lot of cities or in East Texas, you need a little bit of a dry period in the summer to kind of recover a little bit. So hopefully that'll, not too hot, just dry. So hopefully that will happen in this upcoming year. The only other thing I want to draw your attention to is on page 63, a couple of significant subsequent events that we disclosed in the report. And these are things that have happened since the end of your fiscal year back in September 30th of 21. And really a couple of acquisitions that took place. Again, you signed a contract to acquire the other 2/3 interest in the building across the street, which is you have a lot of big plans for, I know, and I look forward to seeing what you're going to do with that. And then also you acquired some property over across from Lake Forest Park over there, that property that goes all the way back into Evenside. That was acquired after year end. So that's all I have tonight to go over with you. I'll entertain any questions you might have at this time. So yes, I took a little more time here.
Questions from council? If not, do I hear a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded. All in favor, please raise your right hand. All opposed, like sign.
Thank you very much. Appreciate y'all.
Thank you very much.
I'm abstaining.
You abstain, okay.
My child works there, so I'm not gonna vote on it.
That's right.
How about it?
It's not my department, so it's okay. God, Brittany.
Thank you.
Okay, item number 7 on the agenda is consideration and possible action on the reappointment of James Holmes as the municipal court of record judge for a 4-year term expiring April 2026. Council, Shirley, you want to explain that a little bit?
Well, normally we have only been doing 2-year terms, but now that y'all have elected to make us a court of record, and that was the point to have an attorney as our judge, the state statute allows us to go up to 4 years. We can do 2 or 4 years, and the mayor and myself would like to request that we go ahead and do an appointment for 4 years for James Holmes.
Any questions? If not, do I hear a motion?
Motion approved.
Motion has been made and seconded. All in favor, please raise your right hand. Like sign opposed. Item number 7 stands approved. Item number 8 we will open a public hearing on the voluntary annexation application of a 10.61 acre tract located at 1900 West Loop 571 North for Center Point Energy Incorporated. The time is
6:25.
6:25. Okay, sure.
This is just formal action that we have to take. We had CenterPoint Energy reach out to us. They want to relocate out on Loop 571. And for them to be able to do that and get on our water system, which I believe Randy and Jay and Neil has all worked with them, and we're gonna extend some water services out there. Their back of their property connects to our Headco's property, so it touches a property within inside the city, so we're able to do a voluntary annexation at their request.
And they have requested.
And they have requested that, and that is the reason for the first public hearing. So next month, we'll have another public hearing, and then we can do the first reading of an ordinance for the service plan and everything that we put in place for them. They will have all city services with coming into the city limits, so they'll have fire protection, police protection, all the city services.
Okay. Information only, we will not go on that. Moved item number 9. I will close the public hearing at this time.
Anybody in the public comment? Is there any citizens want to state anything on that? No one.
Public hearing stands closed at this time. What time do we have, sir?
6:27.
6:27 p.m. All right, let's move on to item number 10 on the agenda. That's consideration and possible action upon engineering service to design an elevator, and start the bid process from Stokes and Associates for the property located at 300 West Main. Mr. Brown? Mr. Holland, I think y'all both are
Mayor. Side pieces.
here. He's coming.
I'm right here with the side by side.
Side by side.
Yes, sir.
So I would like to present Neil Hollins to tell you what this is.
Hey, Commissioner. Davis reached out to our firm to discuss possibility of us designing an elevator shaft for your new city hall. Davis and I met at the location. We talked about the location where the elevators plan to go right now, and that's on the back wall of the new building. It's adjacent to a glass curtain wall, 2-story glass curtain wall and brick wall. It seems like a very simple process, and it is, but it's going to require us to include as a part of our services. We're going to hire an architect. I'm also going to hire a structural engineer, mechanical, electrical engineer, and also we'll be providing geotechnical services because we need a soil board to be able to design a foundation for this shaft and attach this structure to the outside of this building. And so that's what we have for you tonight is a presentation for a work order for your consideration for design of this shaft that will be supported by, I believe you've already talked with an elevator company that you've been in talks with. Whether it's this company or another elevator company, it would be adaptable to whatever company you decide to go with on that. So I'll present that for your consideration. Cost of this work order is $75,000.
You have to have a shaft no matter which company.
Have to have a shaft, no matter what. There were no plans for, when the building was built, there were no plans for an elevator shaft on the inside of the building.
And the elevator company does not design a shaft and vice versa, so you have to go to two different deals.
And basically, we're gonna have to shift this elevator shaft out slightly, because the location where you want us to put it, there's an emergency exit door right there. So we can't eliminate that. And there's no other place right there in that immediate vicinity to put another emergency door. So we're gonna have to adapt that and still maintain that emergency exit and a hallway, short hallway to get to the elevator.
Any questions? Any more questions?
How much more for one like they have at Charlie in the Chocolate Factory? Yeah, I think we do a little. Yeah.
Make it cheap.
Yeah.
A rope and
I mean, shaft, that's what we were asking for.
Yeah,
You go right up top.
Yeah.
No shit. Quiet.
Right.
It's all good.
Do I hear a motion to approve?
so
Second.
Motion has been made, second. All in favor, please raise your right hand. Like sign opposed.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Item number 11 is consideration and possible action on authorizing the city manager to execute an agreement with UT Health EMS. We got some EMS folks back here.
I saw him sneaking in.
I did.
Yeah. How are y'all? Good, thank you for your work today. So, radios, I don't know why I'm talking about this. I think Chief made a memo on it, didn't you?
You made it all too.
Oh, you're right. I think the memo they have is the one you called. So ultimately, this is about the public safety radios. We can buy new radios and they'll be nice and fancy, but they'll just be desk weights if they can't communicate to each other. So that's where this piece comes into play. Looking at a lot of different options on a lot of expensive options when putting up towers or different possibilities. But we have the option to partner with UT Health EMS and a system which they already have and maintain and it's part of their business, so we know they'll continue to maintain it that way. And so the agreement came to you late today again because we've been working on it a little bit. A lot of that most of that was all my fault. Getting it done, we worked on a few little things. It's a 5-year agreement to work with and use UT Health EMS's towers and their communication network with the new radios. And so it's a 5-year agreement. I think we did a 1 year or an annual, after the first 5 years, it'll be an annual automatic renewal unless one or the other gives basically a 6-month decides of action that they don't want to move forward with that or something, for whatever the reason might be. But we're looking forward to that partnership with them and the continued partnership in a little bit different manner. So anything else to add? The cost ultimately is going to be $100 per radio connection, basically per year. Is that the best way to say it?
Yeah.
So we're thinking ultimately around 87 radios is what is in the agreement. If we move that number, just change that per $100 per connection. So that would be $8,700 annually. The initial one's $8,700, and then I think there's a 3% minimum increase on it annually with the cost increase of doing business there. So that's a pretty inexpensive way for us to jump on the communication towers. And Councilman Cersei, if you have anything else if you're still awake, want to add, then you can feel free. If not, then
well, the VHF repeater's $20,000, give or take. And we're paying pennies on the dollar for maintenance. I mean, UT's taking on the brunt of the maintenance because they have to have it no matter what. And we've researched multi-billion-dollar deals all the way down to this. It's the best deal for our police and fire. It's the best deal for our citizens because we're going to greatly benefit from improved coverage and collaboration with our EMS service. So it's a win-win for everybody.
Chief Choate, Chief Taylor, anything? Y'all good with this?
Absolutely. That puts us on the text warning.
Correct. The
Channel.
fire department gets much improved coverage. The police department gets much improved coverage. The city of Kilgore's going to this. So, we did the agreement with the city of Kilgore for some joint work with the police department. So Kilgore's a couple months ahead of us on this, but we're all on the same page. Again, win-win for everybody.
Okay. With that being said, I'd like to make a motion.
I move we approve the agreement.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded. All in favor, please raise your right hand. Like sign opposed. Okay, item number 11 stands approved.
Abstain on that too.
What happened to her again? She abstained again?
You
did not raise your hand.
That's okay.
Just
That's
you.
okay. That's okay. We still have a quorum.
Yeah.
All right, item number 12 on the agenda is consideration and possible action upon the purchase of communication radios for the first responders.
Mayor and Council, we're asking for your consideration and action on the purchase of radios for communication on the text warning system. I've been working with Chief Choate on this. To integrate into the system, we're going to need to purchase those new radios, and both departments are requesting the Motorola APX radios. The reason we're doing this is that, well, for one, it is the cheaper of the two. And the second thing is we're implementing Spillman, which will go live in April. These radios work with our Spillman system, which will be our core programming at the police department and dispatch. This will have GPS enabled. The radios will be GPS enabled, so if a fireman or a police officer goes down and is unresponsive, our dispatch can keep up with them and know where they're at and alert other officers and first responders to respond to them. And that's why we're requesting to go this route.
And coverage, what we're using now, when we do a radio check in the morning, many times inside the station, we have to step outside to key up to hit our repeater on Jola to clear it. And one of our volunteers works for Smith County ESD, and they're on the same system. And he can sit in my office and talk to Chapel Hill on his portable radio, so that's the difference in coverage.
That's a big plus.
Just again, to prove the reliability of what we're getting when we have these set up in a crisis situation. If chief or somebody, if they're in Tyler or Longview, Kilgore, White House, they can tune in and know exactly what's going on without having to worry about sound, interference, any other issue. I was carrying on a conversation with somebody from Houston with a handheld radio. Because there's channels we can get that will work through the entire system, which spans from south of Houston, and it'll eventually get to Texarkana.
And this is something that is it's already regional. There's already several departments in our area that's pushing that way. Law enforcement and fire department as well as moving to regional enforcement and regional protection. This is just enable us to communicate with other agencies more efficiently as well. There's several benefits to it.
Okay. Any more questions? Do I hear a motion to approve?
If there's no questions, I'll move we approve the purchase of these radios.
Motion has been made and seconded. All in favor, please raise your right hand. Like sign opposed. Item number 12 stands approved. Thank you, chiefs. Item number 13 on the agenda. Before we move on. Consideration and possible action upon Kimberly Horn. Kimberly Horn.
I was very consistent.
Well, it says Kimberly.
I was very
The scope of work, schedule, and contract for the comprehensive plan presented in the workshop earlier. I think we've pretty well thrashed that over pretty good. We've got all of our questions answered, very professional. And so, with that being said, do I hear a motion?
Make a motion that we approve the contract with Kimberly Horn. So the comprehensive plan.
Good second.
Okay.
Second. Motion has been made and seconded. All in favor, please raise your right hand. Like sign opposed. Item number 13 stands approved. Item number 14 on the agenda is consideration upon the second reading of ordinance 2022-02-04, removing the one-way street sign during certain times of the day on Lime Street.
And this is just a second reading of the ordinance that was presented last month.
Okay. All right.
Council, y'all remember this last month, we talked about that.
The bus is the bus thing, I think. It's children pickup thing about when school.
Ms. Juarez went out, she was there, but stadium and line on both sides are one way in certain times.
Yeah.
And that was basically set up at that point, Chad, and jump in if I misspeak here, but back when middle school was being renovated and constructed, the school requested that. Now that it's done, the way the process works with the pickup and the buses, they want to keep stadium like it is, but they want to go ahead and make line going both directions again during all times. So it's really a request back again of the school.
Yeah.
And so we do, it's an ordinance to change that. So we do the first reading. This is the second reading of that ordinance change.
That number 14 is information only, but we take action here on the next one. Item number 15, action upon the second reading of an ordinance 2022-02-04, removing the one-way street sign during certain times on Line Street. All right. Same item, verbiage here.
Yeah, this is the actual action of approving the ordinance.
Right. Do I hear a
I make a motion that we approve.
Second.
motion has been made and seconded. All in favor, please raise your right hand. Item number 15 stands approved. Item number 16 is consideration upon the recommendation of the Planning and Zoning Commission on the second reading of an ordinance 2022-02-03 to amend the Henderson zoning map, changing the zone from a general commercial C2 to manufactured home district R4, located on the east side of Oliver Street between Pope Street and Martin Luther King Jr. Boulevard. Okay, Billy?
This was presented last month at the meeting. What we're trying to do is make a map correction again. The zoning map was drawn with the district lines in the backyards, as you can see, of these properties on Oliver Street. And what we're suggesting and asking for council approval is to move that line to the center of the street as it should have been originally, we believe. And the Planning and Zoning Commission that met on January 11th made this recommendation, as well as our staff.
Okay.
I move to correct the zoning on Oliver Street.
Yeah, we'll do that on the next one, number 17. Okay. So, we accept that as read. Thank you, Billy. And we'll go to move to item number 17 now. Action upon the second reading of that ordinance 2022-02-03, amending the zoning map, changing the zone from general commercial C2 to manufactured home district R4, located on the east side of Oliver Street between Pope Street and Martin Luther King Jr. Drive. All right. Do I hear a motion to
I move we correct the zoning on Oliver
All
Street.
right.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded. All in favor, please raise your right hand. Like sign opposed. Item number 17 stands approved. Item number 18, consideration and possible action upon a minor plat combining parcels on 108 Cherry Street. Mr. Hughes.
Mayor and council, we've had a plat that's been submitted by Roy Limley, a certified licensed surveyor, land surveyor, representing Miss Catherine Harris. Ms. Harris has bought all four of these lots, and Mr. Limley has surveyed them and platted them into one parcel. Her plan is to put a manufactured home on this property, and in order to meet all the setbacks and size requirements, she had to acquire all these lots, and she has done so and has a deed saying so. And as you can see, the setback lines are drawn in for the mobile home. I have been in contact with the mobile home manufacturer, and it's a big one. It's a 32 by 76, and it requires a pretty good chunk of land to do it. But
She's agreed that she'll meet all other zoning requirements for the manufactured home district between her and the manufactured home distributor. And our staff recommends this minor plat be approved.
Any questions for Mr. Hughes?
I move we approve this plat application.
All right.
Second.
Motion has been made, and seconded. All in favor, please raise your right hand. Like sign opposed. Item number 18 stands approved. Consideration, possible action upon a minor plat combining parcels at the corner of Highway 79 South and Evenside. Mr. Hughes?
Okay, council, Boulder Engineering has presented us with this plat. They've surveyed this property out. The property is under contract to be developed. It's under sales contract currently, and their plan is to develop this property commercially and do it as a fast food restaurant. And they need this much property. They're contracted with the McCunes to do this. McCunes have agreed to this plat. I've been in contact with them, and they're combining 5 parcels of land into this one large parcel so they can build and develop, continue developing this corner for this restaurant. And our staff recommends that this plat as well be approved. We do have a representative from Boulder here tonight with us if there are any questions concerning the survey or anything.
I do have a big question.
Yes, sir.
Would that be a Chick-fil-A?
Well, it'll be a fast food restaurant that sells chicken.
Okay, you answered the question. Okay, that's fine.
The plat is called the CFA edition, so.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
It is CFA.
You'll be a famous person.
Rightfully so.
Okay.
I make a motion.
Second. Motion has been made and seconded.
You should jump on that.
It's just in my district.
All in favor, please raise your right hand. Like sign. Do not raise your hand. Item number 19. Okay. Item number 20, consideration and possible action on a minor plat dividing parcels located on South Main Street for Galen Runs.
Okay, council, last month, we had the second reading of ordinance to rezone these properties on South Main, and with the possibility that the owner of this vacant lot would want to develop this, and this is the first step in development of these properties for residential use. Mr. Graves has requested that this long, narrow strip be divided as shown on the plat here into 2 parcels, one parcel facing South Main and the other parcel facing South Van Buren. It does meet all the requirements for the minimum lot sizes that are in our ordinances, and our staff recommends that this plat also be approved by council.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded. All in favor, please raise your right hand. Like sign opposed. Item number 20 stands approved. And thank you, Billy. Item number 21 is consideration and possible action on resolution 2022-03-01 for a rate increase from Center Point Enbridge.
Well, Ms. Travers probably can't take this. No, Center Point has put a rate increase for some infrastructure. Again, it's something that we all deal with. And we are asking that you approve a resolution to deny the increase for 45 days. That we believe approval has already came down from the utility system. For them to be able to do that, we would just like to put it off 45 days.
there's any questions?
Carry on.
I make a motion to approve the denial.
Second.
Put it off.
I wasn't gonna trip over myself.
The postponement, 45 days
Yeah, that's all.
of this decision.
Motion has been made and seconded. All in favor, please raise your right hand. All opposed, like sign. Item number 21 stands approved. Time now for departmental reports. You have all of those in your packet. I'm sure you read those. And if any questions, there's management in here that could possibly answer those questions. If not,
I don't have a question, but I would like on behalf of my department myself, show some gratitude towards council and Jay on the work they did on getting the money to the guys. I appreciate it. And they do send their appreciation. So thank you all.
we're glad to do it. We also have boards and commissions. Same thing. I think those minutes are in your packet. If you have any questions there, now's the time. Bring it up. If not, we have a motion to approve.
Move we approve all reports.
Okay. Okay, what you ever done?
You been hanging on it.
If there's no second, it falls off. Want to let you know. Okay. All in favor, please raise your right hand.
He's called for vote.
You're losing. We can't go over 20 items everywhere.
I think not. We're about to get out of order.
I think that ought to be a rule.
All opposed, like sign. 22 stands approved. We will forego the executive session this evening. We really do not have something to discuss in the executive session, so we will at this point in time. What time is it?
At 6:52.
6:52, and I'll ask for a motion to adjourn.
I move we go home.
Yes, second.
All in favor, please raise your right hand.